Before we go to Roger Stone, of course, if you don't know Roger Stone, the legendary American Republican political consultant, you can get a great documentary on Netflix about him, Get Me Roger Stone, and you can find him on stonecoldtruth.com, also on Twitter, at Roger J. Stone Jr. Happy birthday, Roger. You had a birthday yesterday. Share that with LBJ, right?
Thank you very much, David, and congratulations on the launch of the new show. You're looking great.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I wanted to get your comments about what happened in terms of the Paul Ryan, Speaker Ryan, and the other person who is pro-open borders, of course, John McCain, who's part of the Gang of Eight. They were furious about the pardon of Sheriff Joe Arpaio this weekend. You had some comments about that, and I'd also like to get your comments about what Rex Tillerson said yesterday with Chris Wallace on the Fox News Sunday, saying, well, President Trump's views are his own. The State Department and I represent America's views. Is there some division that is now surfacing between Rex Tillerson and President Trump?
Well, let's take these one by one. What John McCain should be outraged about is the fact that the prosecution of Sheriff Joe Arpaio was a political hit by the Obama Justice Department from the beginning.
Yes.
They purposely indicted him under the wrong statute to guarantee that he could not get a jury trial, that his fate would be up to an Obama-appointed federal judge. They monitored his communications with his attorneys during the trial, highly illegal and unconstitutional. They also communicated directly with the judge, ex parte, outside the scope of Arpaio's attorneys. For all of those reasons, this case should never even have come to trial. If John McCain were going to be outraged about anything, he should be outraged by the conduct of the Obama and later Trump Justice Departments in this matter.
Yes, as I said earlier, whether you agree with what Sheriff Arpaio did or not, whether you agree with the immigration policy, which was the law at the time, whether you agree with that or not, the way that this was conducted was an outrage to have a trial like this. We see the same thing happening in the Bunkerville trials of the defendants, the way the judge comes in and shuts down defense witnesses, doesn't allow things that the government did to be talked about, so puts very narrow restraints on what can and cannot be talked about. A very partial judge trying to push through an agenda, and that's exactly what we saw in the case of Sheriff Arpaio. We should all be concerned about those kinds of trials, and the people who are subjected to that should be pardoned by someone. If they're going to have a Justice Department that is going to allow that to happen, at least the president can pardon that kind of miscarriage.
Yeah, for a number of years now, I have thought that Senator John McCain has been mentally unbalanced. I have firsthand reports of his volcanic temper, his fits of rage, turning beet red, melting down. This man is not well. We know he has some serious health problems. We wish him Godspeed and a full recovery from those, but that does not excuse his continuing attempts to essentially bolster the liberal Democrats, bolster the critics of Donald Trump while not supporting his own president and his own party. This is a man who said the excesses, the Russian collusion was worse than anything we'd seen in Watergate. No, Senator, we've seen no evidence whatsoever of Russian collusion. This is a man who said that Barack Obama was a much better president than Donald Trump. No, Senator, Barack Obama was a disgrace as president. Donald Trump is the real deal. So John McCain is increasingly out of touch with reality, and I am among those who are just not afraid to say so. As far as Rex Tillerson is concerned, I see the continuation of the same trend, David, that I saw with Gary Cohn. If you cannot support the president, then you should resign. This is an act of treason. When Walter Hickel, who is the Secretary of the Interior, disagreed publicly with President Richard Nixon over the Vietnam War, he was summarily fired. Mr. Tillerson should be fired. Mr. Cohn should be fired. Let's be clear. The president said nothing wrong. What the president said was absolutely, positively correct, and that is that those who condone or advocate violence, whether they are on the left or on the right, should be denounced, should be renounced. Sorry, mainstream media. That's not a meltdown. That's not an error. That's what the American people think. That's what the middle Americans and the silent majority thinks. That may not be what they think in New York and San Francisco, but it's what America thinks.
And clearly when he made those comments, to me, I thought that was non-controversial because we had seen every Trump rally from the first one in Chicago attacked by people. People would show up, they had a permit, they had a venue, they were talking about politics, and yet they were violently attacked by people who politically opposed them. And so Donald Trump and his supporters had seen this happen throughout the campaign, and then after the election, we saw the same thing. And so clearly, there's violence on the left, but the mainstream media ignores that. And I would say also, including Fox News, it was Chris Wallace who set this whole thing up, that Donald Trump had been criticized for equivocating these two different groups and so forth, and coming from the presumption that, of course, Donald Trump said the wrong thing. Does that make your job more difficult as Secretary of State? That's the way it was presented by Fox News' Chris Wallace to Rex Tillerson.
It's the obligation of the president's appointees to support him. If they cannot support him in good conscience, then the right thing to do is resign. In this case, as I said last night here at InfoWars, I really think the State Department has been captured by the globalists. The president's doing a great job on domestic policy, whether it is immigration or trade or his all-out push for tax reform and a cut in the corporate tax rate. But I fear the globalists have captured the State Department. Rex Tillerson's major patron is Condoleezza Rice. You may remember she was a cheerleader for the Iraq War under George W. Bush. We are not cleaning out our embassies. They are infested with George Soros quislings. That's certainly true across Eastern Europe. I traveled to Romania and Hungary earlier this year and saw this firsthand. So it is very little question that the president has surrounded himself with people who are disloyal. The idea of the White House economic advisor criticizing the president of the United States openly is outrageous. Mr. Cohn.
That's all the time we got. Thank you. I know you got to go and can't stay with us for another segment, but thank you so much, Roger Stone, for joining us. And again, if you want to find Roger Stone, you can find him at stonecoldtruth.com. Thank you so much, Roger.